Hello, welcome back to my GTNH playthrough. It is December 15th. We are out here at my desert outpost, just kind of show a few changes I made or things I added. One thing to point out right away, I did swap what type of meteor I was dropping. This guy is the meteor that gives you things like cosmic neutronium, for example, which I did craft one ingot just to get the quest. It doesn't give you very much, but I figured I'd start doing that now and just start building up for when we swap over to the next tier. My holmium is, I don't have too much, but I will probably like alternate meteors or something. Basically, that guy's done by sacrificing a elite to amplifier, UU matter amplifier. So just it's got a bunch of cool stuff because the other one in there is black plutonium, which is not something I had before, and it might not be even processing. Oh, here we go, 18k. I know both those I can make bees for as well, so at least we'll have the ability to make the bees if I want to. Over here, I did add this fluid extractor. This guy is taking care of all my oxygen combs because I was still having oxygen problems. I also added this centrifuge with air intake hatches to get more oxygen and nitrogen. That's because I did swap this guy, which is making my nitric acid, over to the Circuit 21 recipe, which takes oxygen, nitrogen, and hydrogen and nothing else. So I don't have to worry about this ever running out. And then I did add a bunch of hydrogen and one with a void just to keep it from shutting off, because that did happen to me before over the weekend where my hydrogen maxed out and I'm not really using that at the same rate, so I wasn't getting oxygen anymore. I also took care of and fixed all this stuff. There was a couple weird things going on. I believe all my stuff was still going over this guy, so it shut it down. And now I also was not processing my sticky resin, so I wasn't getting plant balls, but now all that is taken care of and we're producing more of it, so I'm not too worried about running out anymore. But we do have, say for example, 6.4 million growth medium, so we're good. I do need to make a reserve tank now though, because I do believe this is used, the raw form is used for something else, so I just need to do a little of that just to not when I run into or want to work with that stuff later, I'm not running out. That was it for the desert. If we fly back over to the main base. Alright. This guy's coming along a little bit. Been messing around with it. Over here, one of the more simple things I did was I did do a lot of the bee crafting that I had the goal for the weekend. The only one that's missing from this chest right now is bedrockium, because that's the only one I actually did all the stats for already, because I was getting annoyed at how long 16 amp UV stuff took to craft, because I believe it took 183,000 cobblestone to compress down into the couple of bedrockium wires I needed for those hatches. But now the bedrockium bee's going, and we have, I mean, just in a few hours, 12k bedrockium, like, so this would have been like millions of cobblestone right there in a lot of time. But that guy's all good. I also got the coolant princess, the pyrothium, labotron, cryolithium, explosive, which the explosive, I mean, that'll be kind of useful, but not too much. I have plenty of ITNT, but you did need to make this to make bedrockium, so I probably will stat this up just to get the free ITNT and not have that ever be an issue. And then down here, I didn't quite get to it, but I did lay out my breeding path to be able to get all the Ender IOBs, which you can see like red alloy, redstone alloy, pulsating iron, edgec iron, conductive iron, vibrant, electrical steel, dark steel, and derium. And then up here, so this tree is to be able to get all these down here, and this little group of bees is just to get me the quantum bee, which was another one on my list of things I wanted, just to have a forever source of citrus and nether quartz. like I said, none of these are bred up and these aren't bred out yet, so this will just be more kind of like pastime things. Although earlier I felt like building, so while I was waiting on a few things to craft, I did was just kind of mess around over here to see if I liked the shape that I had kind of was thinking about in my head. Also, while waiting for things to craft, took the opportunity to upgrade some of the stuff. So I had 3 multi-blocks that I had never bothered putting into my auto crafting, which would be, in this case, this one represents the arc furnace. So like all my annealed copper and wrought iron, it wasn't slow even in the single block, but now will be substantially faster. And the thing that was slow, these two will take care of, which is coolant cells. So this guy's a fluid heater. This guy is the distillation tower, which are basically you heat up sodium, get liquid sodium, and then you distill it with some rock salt to get the liquid potassium or sodium potassium that goes into the coolant cells. But I was doing that through single blocks, and it was starting to get annoying how slow it was. I should have probably done this a while ago, but this substantially speeds up that process. So there's nice little additions here. And then over the weekend, I did set up these 2 things. This is just a temporary location, but to be able to actually progress forward, where we stopped on Friday was I was unable to craft this wetware mainframe, which, as you can see from the quest, I was able to craft it. Because this guy, to be able to unlock it, you do need the research station, and you have to run it through instead of doing the normal scanner. So I did have to set up these guys and read up on how they work. And honestly, they're not too bad. The quantum computer, so I have it turned off. You can actually see I did this, would have been around 5 p.m. yesterday, because it does constantly use energy if it's running. And at the moment, since the only thing hooked up to it is the research station, if I'm not using this, I'm not going to drain the power. But for the setup, one thing to note, if you are using the NEI thing for it. So where is this? The quantum computer. We go to the multi-block. Well, now it's showing a maintenance hatch. Maybe it was the research station? Research. No, this guy shows a maintenance hatch too. I don't know why, but yesterday it was not showing me the maintenance hatch, so that threw me off a little bit, especially because the description for this uncertainty resolver X is that it does the maintenance for the machine, so that was the whole thing. But for the most part, it's a pretty straightforward thing to build. So you obviously the quantum computer, this single block in the multi-block goes in the same place no matter what. But then the first and last slice are where you kind of like put your input, output, energy, all that jazz. In this case, we need this maintenance hatch, as well as for this guy, the uncertainty resolver, which is like a little puzzle thing, and it's turned off in all black right now, so I can't really show it, but basically it's a little like slidey game where all these are different shades of black to blue, and you kind of click on these buttons to swap the puzzles around, and the idea is to get it all balanced. It was throwing me off a little because I didn't have an equal number of colors, like there was one distinctly different, so for a little while there I was just kind of clicking until it went green. But basically if you work towards just balancing the 2 sides with all the colors, which unfortunately I can't show off right now, it balances out, and worst case just keep clicking and you'll get it eventually. And then in the middle you use these computer racks, which these are what give essentially the equivalent of energy for these things. So this guy kind of works like the neuron activator or anything else, where essentially this thing is creating computational power, which for all intents and purposes is just a different form of energy as far as I'm concerned, because you just, for whatever tier of circuits in here, which I just did 2 and 2, whatever the tier is gives you a certain amount of computational power, and then this research station can only do the research if it's receiving higher than that computational power. So it's, it's like just a different form of energy. So we got the transmission, the receiver, and then none of these will hook to each other until you paint them. Like I painted these ones pink, but if I hadn't painted them, they weren't like connected to each other at all. And then for the research station was basically simpler to set up, but you throw a data stick in here, throw whatever item you're trying to research. So like if the mainframe, you threw in a supercomputer, and then this thing goes. And then I did do a couple higher tier ones just to see if they would work, which ultimately resulted in me having to change the energy hatch on this to be a 4 amp to be able to hold it. And then I did this big old buffer here just to not run out of power, because the bigger research I did was for the space elevator, which definitely a decent ways from being able to craft, or not, maybe not as far as I'm thinking now, because I can craft these fuel generators, and I don't actually know what tier I need for this. If I were to do the fluid solidifier ZPM, I could actually, maybe I'll mess around with that later in the week, because all the UV. Oh, okay. This tier 7 plate I don't have set up yet, but I believe heavy duty tier mysterious crystal. Yeah, I mean, by all rights, I could build this thing, unless there's something crazy in here. Maybe these guys. I don't know. I might look into that later, but have other bridges to cross first. But this thing is not as far away as I thought. But I did do the research for it just because I was curious to see if I could do a higher one. But it does take 4 billion EU per tick, so you can't just have a single UV energy hatch on there, because that only takes in 2 amps, which is like 2 million EU per tick. So you had to do the 4, and then in my case I threw a 16 batteries on here just to make sure it didn't run out. So that was that. And then the last thing, which is mostly what I worked on today, basically while I was waiting for things to craft for this, I did a little bit of crafting, or like shoring up the systems over here, which is I did set up tier 4 water. Honestly, this one was probably the easiest of the group to set up. It's pretty straightforward. So the tier 4 water is the pH neutralization one. Neutralization, yeah. It's pH neutral, or yeah, pH neutralization purification unit. And the goal is just to keep the pH at 7. So the goal is to get it as close, the pH to close to 7 as possible. I did look at the wiki to see what the number range was. So for it to get 100%, you need it to be between 6.95 and 7.05. So all you do to set this guy up, so on the back side, if we were to look at it, I do have tier 3 water coming in. Then I also have a buffer of tier 4 water, or grade 4, but I don't think this is necessary, because if you have the pH perfect, it will not fail. So like I said, it's almost easier than the other tiers down below, because you can get 100% rate. So I might actually turn this off. We'll see. It's not really a big deal right now, but if for some reason it was just a little place where I could be, or might be wasting water. And then down here, you use these 2 pH sensors where you set them to the 2 values I just said, and they'll transmit a symbol. And I just got them up here. So I will say, my original plan for this, I changed up after looking at the wiki, but I also I like this version of the setup versus what the wiki does for the setup. So just to show off real quick. So this guy is literally just a interface with sodium hydroxide stocked, and then this conduit only extracts if there's a redstone signal. So that low end one there will extract and put sodium hydroxide, and then when it stops giving the symbol, it doesn't extract anymore. Then over on this side is just what we've been doing a bunch of times now, where I'm gonna carefully click on the corner. We just have a fluid regulator. Again, I did look at the wiki to see what the proper amounts are, but -90, and then we have a machine controller, and this regulator needs to be using the machine processing state. So the machine controller enables with redstone. This guy turns on and stables the main machine controller, which enables the fluid regulator. And then, yeah, it's really quite that simple. That's all there is to this grade. Now for the grade 5, which is actually what I'm aiming for, because to be able to progress, we need to do American doped wafers, which do need So we can get this guy no problem. But to get this, we need grade 5. Yeah, we need the grade 5 water to be able to cut this guy. So that's what we're currently working on, which I did get the grade 5. Let's see if I have it in here. I believe it is plasma water. Oh, it's in my inventory already. The big thing that I was waiting on while I was building everything was the reinforced sterile water casings. If we look at this guy's structure, it is huge and takes 672, which this in turn takes a ton of graphite. Now, because of that, I did upgrade my graphite recipe to be a lot faster. I went from this is the recipe I went to with the Nequata doped wafer, but I was still using the phosphorus one. So this one's 40 seconds for 64. The one I was on was 160 seconds. So this is substantially faster, but did basically bring to my attention that I really, at some point this week, need to set up, I think it's all the way back in LUV, this ethyl cyanocrylite superglue, basically superglue cell. And it's not going to be too much, but I am probably just going to throw this out in the desert because it is like a 4-step process amongst, and just, have it be all out there and be passive and just keep like a good source of it. But before I do that, I'm going to set up the grade 5, and this will be what I work on either tonight, maybe, or tomorrow first, to set up the grade 5 water, and then work on the wafers, because doing that with the grade 5 water will get us the doped wafers, which will allow us to make these quantum power things, which we need the grade 5 water to do, the wafers, and then once we have the wafers, we can finally make the fusion reactor, which the fusion reactor I want to get because multiple reasons. Nitinol is what's been holding us back from crafting a bunch of stuff, as well as I'm going to use a couple of these to upgrade the power. But in terms of power, not to ramble too long, I do also want to work towards setting up the Nequata reactors. I was looking at those over the weekend. I didn't set anything up or like put anything in motion to get them, but these seem pretty straightforward and like a good source of power. So I want to do a mixture of a new plasma extreme, or the fluid heater exchanger, and steam setup with better tier materials, as well as these, and run them parallel. And then ideally I have in my mind how I want to change how I distribute power throughout the base, because my current setup kind of drives me nuts a little bit, and I want to fix it as we move onwards and upwards. It won't be too bad to fix though, especially as with the auto crafting expansion, especially as I go into parallelization, is just going to go west. We're going to use my copy building and plop a bunch down and go from there. So I am excited. It was a productive weekend. I've said this before, but I kind of tried to go a little faster today just because there was so much random stuff I did to not take forever to get it out. But if there's anything you'd like to see more of or have specific questions on, feel free to ask me. I will more than happily show it off the next day or in tomorrow's video and what have you. So yeah, I appreciate everybody for watching. I hope you guys had a good weekend, and I will see you tomorrow. Goodbye.